My mind is like, maybe they collaborated in the back end about this. You don't know, right? It benefits both brands. It gets both brands in the spotlight.
But it's just to encourage people to try a new sport, to get out, to find community. And she kind of solved the problem that she had.
And the key thing about that is audience. They know how to work their audience. They know what works with them. They know how to engage them.
It's about the goals that you set at the beginning of your campaign or whatever you're going to do. This is purely for exposure. This is just to get our brand out there as far as possible.
Make it look classy, and then people will buy it. So
yeah.
For those not in hip hop, it's a song.
That focuses on the product rather than potentially controversial imagery would be advisable. If an AI bot said that,
how do I behave more like what it's true to me?
Exactly.
And bring that into a room confidently.
Yeah.
And be happy to share those ideas.
Oh, seriously?
CJ.
What, from the pot?
Yeah.
Sometimes it bangs from the pot, because all the seasoning is there, bruv. No,
that's
have you ever banged it from the pot? Hi, guys. My name's Ade.
Hi, guys. My name's Kush.
This is the Obala podcast, where we discuss all things marketing, data, information,
thought processes, ideas,
and a diverse view of culture and how marketing comes together with that.
Yes, I think it's an intro much needed in like a long time coming. I think the best thing would be just to maybe give the listeners or the viewers a bit of a background as to what we, from your perspective, what works in the sense of what we've created, or what not created, but what we're aiming for essentially from this.
100% just to be different. I'd like just to have something, a different marketing focused discussion platform where we could just be like real, so to speak, and just, I don't know, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and there's no offense to any other podcast that's talking about marketing, but I don't really feel like I relate because nobody looks like me, doesn't seem to convey or discuss the interests that we have. And there's so much good stuff going on within the things that we're interested in outside of our professional careers. That from has a marketing standpoint, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just one of those things where I would really like for us to kind of talk about them and actually highlight some of the good work that's going on, some of the practices that people are taking, look at some campaigns and, things that we engage with in our everyday life that we like to, that don't necessarily get covered when it turns into a marketing podcast. So like almost when it's a marketing podcast, like, all right, we're at work mode, be marketers, but they forget the human side.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Marketers are all humans with interests and things that they like to do. So that's what I kind of want to.
I think the core crossover here is the fact that I was thinking about this coming in. I think the main thing for me was like, how do we talk about some of the topics that we are interested in with the marketing lens? And I figured it out in the marketing sense.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we have algorithms feeding us our specific interests.
Yes.
So from your perspective and my perspective, we have similar topics, but we're fed different information.
Okay.
And because of those timelines and those algorithms, we're able to put a different perspective on what we're fed with a marketing lens. Sounds complicated. But
it's actually it's true because when we spoke earlier, we had different opinions, perspectives, and views on the same thing. So you're probably right. I agree with that.
Okay.
What's your take on it?
That's So I think then the next segue is more. We can do a bit of a background intro to both of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be pretty cool to understand from a listener's perspective, even though I sound like a marketer right now, what the audience wants to hear as to what, I mean, it sounds crappy, but the credentials, right? Like, who are these two guys on a podcast?
Yeah.
What are their credentials? So I guess maybe you could start, with your, extensive experience and where you've, how long you've been in this, all that kind of stuff. I mean,
to kind of go through it, been in marketing for the last, I always get this wrong, I feel it's like 12 to 15 years now.
Time is going fast.
Yeah, I know, it's showing my age, but been working in different companies in different roles, all from being a marketing executive, to being a business development executive, going up into a marketing automation manager, senior marketing automation manager, marketing operation manager for companies I won't name, but it's all from blue chip companies, small companies to larger multinationals. But I ain't trying to get in trouble for saying nobody's kind of company's name on here. You can see it on the LinkedIn.
You had to flex the blue chip part for sure.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. It's all rounded experience. At the end of the day, if you worked in these different places, you get to see marketing occurring at different levels, budgets. You get to see different budgets.
And why would you not flex your experience?
Exactly.
Like, you've worked your ass off.
Exactly. So yeah, I appreciate it. But yeah, so I've worked in all these companies, and I've kind of gone from more traditional marketing in a sense as to working with like what used to be print marketing, the foundations of when email marketing started, working in, magazines with events and partnerships, and kind of like segued into like the whole digital world. So getting more online, working with more CRM platforms, working with automated nurture campaigns and kind of automating all the MarTech tools that the companies I've worked for have in their MarTech stack, and managing those.
You've basically had to pivot with the industry's evolution.
Exactly.
That's what a marketer does, right? So
yeah. So it's kind of like I've seen it. It's like I would liken it to people who had seen life before social media and people who see life after social media. And there's some people who've only seen one or the other, or who were more entrenched in one and then the other came and they're not a part of it, and one who's only seen one. I've kind of sat right in that middle.
Very lucky place to be, basically.
Yeah, 80s baby. Yeah. But yeah, God, and so
same as me, man. Like, I think that's why we've, I guess, worked on a couple of projects together and have similar interests. I've, grown up in Kenya most of my life, came to the UK, born here, but then, just found my way around marketing. I thought that was the most interesting topic within my lectures and stuff. So I specialized in that.
Yeah.
Looking around customer psychology and behavioral science and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, similarly, started within events and magazine publishing and a gambling company or a publisher, doing larger events to like 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And then gone to media land, ad land, one of the biggest media agencies there. Worked at top, the big four accountancy or consultancy firm. I worked at smaller agencies. I worked at sports and entertainment agencies, transport consultancies, everything under the sun. So
rounded
that's why we're here, man. And it's just, I guess, from our experience and our trajectory, what we're essentially getting of the essence of what we're understanding that's out there, and kind of putting our view on it comparatively to what's out there, I guess.
It's so true. I think it's interesting because you've been in so many different industries. You get to see marketing applied, what the principles are. Because they, as you can imagine, I mean, this, they change. Whether you're working in a transport company compared to a food company, compared to what is important. I guess the principles stay the same, but what they focus on and what works for those type of marketing changes, right?
It's a very interesting space everywhere I've been, but I think we just spoke about this quite a couple of hours ago. It's like the essence of marketing does not. It's like what is the key that you're trying to achieve is awareness and brand recognition and audience engagement, all this kind of lovely marketing acronyms that everyone doesn't need to hear, but you know what I mean. So I guess, I think the next segue, probably easiest to go into sorry.
Hold on a second. I'm just going to say, did at one point we ever say our names? Cause,
no.
Sometimes you get into a conversation with someone and you're like, oh, sorry, who are you?
Yeah.
Happened to me today, actually. But yeah, we're going to that. So I'm Ade. I don't know what to do. I'm Ade.
I'm Kush. But you'll probably see us tagged on the posts on LinkedIn and social media. But yeah, that's just how we are. But good spot.
How do we know each other?
We got in touch via a football WhatsApp group specifically focused on Arsenal, because Ade used to work with my brother at a top 4 consultancy firm. I would say
it's a financial services accounting firm.
Yeah, better. And from there was like a lot of I hate the word cross pollination, but like Yeah,
if it's the word, it's the word.
Yeah, but we worked in a similar industry in that sense, or departments, basically. So that's how the engagement, the conversation started. Yeah, that makes sense. That was a really long-winded way of saying it, basically, but here we are.
Yeah. It's mad that the strongest bond out of all of that stuff, despite us working in similar industries, having connections who me.
Marketing knows marketing, bro.
It's Arsenal, though.
Yeah, and marketing knows marketing.
Of course.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
you understand the struggles. So we go on. I don't know. Do you wanna start off or give the topics of what we're talking about today? What's kind of come up? Again, thinking while I was on the way here, I've added like catchphrases for each topic.
All right, go. Okay.
So you can start by saying the topic, and then I'll give you the.
Okay, so but I guess what we want to do, kind of every episode, is give either an outrageous or a very positive example of a marketing branding campaign that we've seen recently or come across that we kind of want to spotlight and foster some discussion. I need to stop looking at the camera. I feel like I'm so used to film a concept where I look at the camera. I just need to look normally. But yeah, we wanted to kind of highlight something positive that we've seen or something totally outrageous that we've seen in the marketing world. It's kind of like a hot take or a hot topic for us to discuss. And I think today I actually have to start with one that I didn't know 48 hours ago that I was going to be discussing it, but it came up. And basically I went out to take my dog, Taco, for a walk. And we're out walking and he's gone off as he does and he's run into another dog and started chasing this dog around. And it's a lovely little dog. And the owner just, turned around, really friendly, smiled and said, off they've gone. Sparked up a conversation, as you do. Any dog walker will tell you. The amount of conversations you have with a dog is crazy. Like, you speak to so many people.
I think you more than me. I'm very chilled out. I see dog walkers speaking, or people with dogs speaking more to my dog than me. Maybe that's my face being unapproachable or something. I don't know.
Fair enough. That's a bit peak, though.
Maybe he's more welcoming.
He's more cute than you. It's like, he speaks better English.
I'm just gonna speak with him. I'm not gonna bother the other guy. But yeah, I get it. Okay. And then what basically happened in the sense of conversation?
So we just got talking, and she was telling me we were just having a general conversation about dogs, about the housing situation in London, and she was discussing what we do for work, and we got into the topic of kind of our professional careers. And she said she's in PR and comms, but she really has like a passion project that she works on. And, we kind of spoke more about it. And what it was is that she came to London, the lady I met, from Bolton, and really tried to connect with football groups here because she's an avid football player. So she loves the sport, likes to play it. And up north, I think it was, she was used to playing regularly, tried to come and find that down here and found it was a little bit difficult to get into different football groups because of the cliquey nature, but because of like the lack of an open, inclusive space for everybody who's playing football to play. You have like teams who already have established that team of 11 players. And it's like, unless you're on trials and then you get inducted, there's not really I want to just generally play football and meet people through football. And I think especially as a woman, there was a little bit of a stigma around playing. So,
and that's one good thing about London, about the openness, as in where you can find your lane, so to say. If you want
yeah. But the thing is, I think there's always, if you have a problem, which she had, which was the cliquey nature of the football groups that existed, there's going to be somebody else who has that problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In London, and you're going to be able to kind of locate them. And what she was able to do was kind of start up, was basically like a community where it's to encourage, women and people in the LGBTQ community to come and play sports as part of an inclusive, open community where there are leagues, so there are football leagues that she has. There's obviously the option to kind of play tennis as well. But it's just to encourage people to try a new sport, to get out, to find community. And she kind of solved the problem that she had by starting up what she wishes was there. And it was quite inspiring because I lived in Amsterdam for a few years. And the first thing I did when I got there was try to find football groups, and it was so difficult. And I felt like I was on the outside of everything. That's why I could really relate to it, because I was kind of like trying to get into a community, trying to make friends. And it's really hard when you move city as an adult. And it was through finding, luckily, a football group and then starting to play for a team that my experience changed. So I think it's a really positive thing that she's doing, and she's really promoting the inclusiveness of everybody should be able to play the sport. And she recently did a campaign with Arsenal, because we are the best club and we care about the community. I mean, what can I say?
Common theme.
But yeah, she recently did a campaign with Arsenal, where she did like a short film with them. She wrote a blog, which they both published on the women and men's social media accounts, and her blog was actually published on the website. And I just think it's a beautiful kind of connection between somebody who had a problem coming into London. And the thing is, it's like, that's the best way for London to embrace you, like a club, which is a staple of London community, to take you in, but then to also, get behind you and then promote what you're doing as well. And then actually have like a brand exposure and activation with it. And within that, she got one of the Arsenal players, I forget her name, I need to check her name, who is part of the LGBTQ community, to come in. She was part of the film. Everybody who was kind of working on the production set that Arsenal provided to help film the video was part of the community. So it was really like, they really thought about how can we make this more impactful, not just from what's being shot and what's going to be put on all the socials and put out, but how can we make the people who are there feel, safe and connected, as well as, this lady who's amazing, who's championing such a great cause and trying to get people encouraged to play sports. I just think that's beautiful. I just think it's amazing.
It's a great collaboration or like campaign, as you said. And then one thing that came up as well on my feed here was that obviously Black History Month this month, and it's like there was a episode that Arsenal are also doing around fans who come from African or Caribbean backgrounds and how their experience has been in terms of being engaged with the club. And one of the things that came up was in the 1980s, I think obviously hooliganism was at the all-time high, but Arsenal and Highbury was a very safe space for people to come in, and it was very welcoming and multicultural and diverse. And that was one of the few clubs that actually had that atmosphere, which essentially brought more diverse background supporters because they felt an affinity to the area and the club. And I think that was pretty cool. And it's still, as you've just explained, it's still going on today.
Exactly.
So and that in itself is the DNA and fabric of a brand, if you want to call it that. And how you keep true to your values. And
I think it's a really good thing for them to continue doing that, especially as it's not like a major, lucrative deal. It's like showing that they actually got their eye to the ground and ear to the ground, to see what's going on in the community. So it's called Clubs United. The website is clubsunited.org. If you want to go and visit it, check it out. It's a great initiative. If you want to get into football, whether you are part or not part of the LGBTQ community, just go check it out, because there's so many options. There's so many leagues running. I think it's a great cause, and
and they did it. It was on Instagram as well, so I guess people can search it on that.
So the activation was on Instagram, and I guess we could share the handles.
Of course.
If anyone wants to check it out.
I think following that sort of collaborative campaign, if you want to call it that, there was also the whole Drake Nocta thing that's happened with Venezia. I mean, following the football conversation. So from my understanding, there was like Venezia, I don't even know how to properly ask my wife about this as well, but they had an issue with regards to funding, and Drake apparently got involved with, I think there was a investment group that helped them out with some capital and stuff. From that connection, they also lost their sponsor and kit sponsor at the beginning of the season. And he has his own brand, which is Nocta, affiliated with Nike. And they basically came up with a new, I guess it's their first sponsorship as a football sponsor to sponsor them, essentially. And now they're basically their kit sponsors, and helps them in terms of, I guess, starting this new brand that he's had for like a couple of years now. And now we all know how fashion and football is now
merged into one, right?
It's becoming the thing. Just looking at that collaboration and like the conversation that have happened around it, that for me was one of the ones that came out as like a pretty interesting, cool campaign or long-term campaign. I think they're going to be like a partnership, but it's something definitely to mention anyway. But
I mean, this is, to be fair, it's a natural, for Drake, it's a natural progression to, like, if I think about artists that have really been heavy on this football shirts thing, not just football as well. I mean, I don't know if he plays football, but the football shirt thing. You remember the pink Juventus Jeep top?
I was literally just going to say that.
Bro, he's the first person that wore it, and then everyone bought the pink Juventus Jeep top afterwards. And I think, you know, I don't know if that was a purposeful play by Juve, but I'm sure he would have seen at that point.
And the what's it called? What's the word? Like the difficult. I'm not even thinking right. Anyway, controversial. That's it.
Yeah.
So controversial angle is sponsored by Adidas, right? And he moved to Nike. So it's like, what happened? Like they had an opportunity, right, to be
do something more, and they couldn't continue. I guess so. But now he's got his own brand to get onto Venezia, and Venezia before Nocta. Last season was the first time I'd heard people rocking Venezia kits because I don't know who their sponsor was. I want to say Kappa.
Yeah. But their kits were amazing. The branding.
And they made it look like perfume adverts for people. It was like, it was fashion. It was fashion first, football second.
If you look at branding, that was for me one of very well done because it's the Italian heritage, fashion first, to make it look good. Make it look classy, and then people will buy it. So it's quality over quantity.
Exactly. And so they really lent in. So for him to jump there, his team are not silly. They've obviously seen, well, last season they released this kit. We can get onto it. I mean, it'd be interesting collab to see how the sales pan out, and if it really jumps.
The second kit looks really good, the white one I saw, but I'm not too sure about the home kit. But the branding of the second one looks like, I don't know, it's got influences of hockey as well.
Yeah.
So it's quite like badge heavy, orange and green, white. So, if we can edit it properly, we'll put it on this reel and show people what it is, see what their thoughts are.
To be fair, I feel I'm not one of the people who's gotten to that stage of wearing football kits for fashion yet.
I've been there for a long time.
I know. It's just I just play too much football and then I wear it and then before you know it, the armpits bang and I can't rock it on the road. So, but to be fair, some of them do look good. I've seen you rock some, and you always drop it well, I must say, as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So, I guess following that conversation around collaborations and brand exposure, I think what I shared this with you is this new, I would call it a beef within the fashion world. And again, I hate the word urban, but it's like, I think it could be the word, as you said, but at the same time, I don't think it does it justice because a lot of people from different backgrounds actually engage in like brands, which I'm talking about are Cortiez and Palace and skateboard heavy. Yeah, there you go. He's wearing it.
Pushing P.
Yeah. For those not in hip hop, it's a song. So I saw this a couple of days ago. There was like a new release by Palace, and they kind of had an influence around Brazil's 90s, heavy 2000s, football, the jerseys that have come out, or the shirts that came out like 2002 time, R9 times. Right. So I think Cortez basically did this collaboration with another capsule they did a few months ago, which was quite heavily focused on the influence around Brazil and the heritage. And from you're older than me, not to put you in the spotlight, but growing up, if you think about iconic shirts, that's Brazil is the one, right? Because they had the superstars of the world. They're sponsored by Nike. They had a neon yellow shirt, which just sticks in your mind. I don't know what else you can cover in that sport.
I mean, come on. They beat England with that Ronaldinho logo of Seaman in the World Cup. There's so many moments in that World Cup that,
it's like 98, they made the final, obviously lost, but then 2002, they won it. So
that was Ronaldo's haircut. Basically, and that haircut, outside of football went crazy. I can't believe people got that haircut.
That was viral before viral, right?
I mean, that just shows the power of, what an endorsement can do, but nobody was having that trim and then all of a sudden. So, there was a lot of nostalgia attached to it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. So, But yeah, they dropped a new capsule, Palace, and then they've got like this influence around Brazil and like the logo and the badge and stuff.
Yeah.
And basically Cortez saw that as kind of like a stamping on their ground. And what basically Cortez has done is like taken the Palace triangle, put that as put that as a logo on Instagram, put Cortez all over it. He's doing a new drop for Cortez's brand. And they said, this is a new discount code, which basically taking clear shots at Palace.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty awesome. Like, I think that's a really cool campaign to get your legs on. And I know it's not the most nicest circumstances, but he's the guy who basically owns Cortez, I assume, has a lead role in the decisions they're making.
Yeah.
However, props to their marketing team as well. I'm sure there's like a lot of people involved in the brand building and relationships, but capitalizing on that moment, I think that ties really well to their brand and how their brand is perceived externally. But I don't know what your feeling was on that when you saw it. Like, how did you digest it? Were you laughing at it? Were you like, oh, this is tongue in cheek, I get it? Or like, what was your response to it?
I think in terms of considering that I like both the brands, I think it was...
I couldn't tell, by the way.
Yeah. Nor could I, to be fair. Is this with Primark? Yeah, but like, I think I have a lot of respect for the Cortiez brand.
Yeah.
I think because of all the activations, we talked about this earlier, the activations they've done before that are kind of like tongue in cheek. It's kind of like, I won't say guerrilla marketing, but they just pop up and do stuff that gets people talking. Like the coat swap where they were swapping with North Face coats. You trade in your North Face
That was when
coat,
I heard of them first. It was like, and it was this massive viral moment because everyone was in kind of lockdown that area, but you were online and you saw it like 100%.
And it's like, it wasn't exposed. It wasn't a drop that was known. The location wasn't known until the day. So the guy, Clint, who owns the brand, has really found a good way of kind of making things exclusive, making it niche, drumming up interest, but kind of maintaining that exclusivity. So I think if a brand like Palace, which in their own right has done that too, comes for a space that you're in, you've got two choices. You can kind of
wilt away,
get angry. But he said, okay, I feel he's probably happy because it's given him a product to drop. And the fact, kudos to them that they're able to kind of turn around a product with the branding that they have in the same, matching theirs in the same timeline earlier than Palace is going to drop. I think it's smart. I think it's going to get sales. And I think because it's got people talking, people obviously know the optics are the same. He used the same branding. He used everything the same. All the posts and all the imagery, the previews for the products are the same. So people are going to buy, and it's almost forcing people to pick a side.
It's got us talking.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that then, I mean, we'll touch on this later in this episode.
Yeah.
But there is something in my mind. It's like, maybe they collaborated in the back end about this. You don't know, right? It benefits both brands. It gets both brands in the spotlight.
Yeah.
It gets exposure. I don't know how, like, you'll get divisions anyway, but it won't stop someone saying, I'm still going to buy a Cortiez hat. I might get a Palace jumper. Like, it's still going to work, and people will move on from this within the next few weeks. So,
and that's the maddest thing. It's just drubbing up sales out of nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not to diss the quality of the products or anything like that, but the production of it is minimal because they've taken ultimately the old Nike Brazil kit. So there's not had to create something new. They've attached that nostalgia, and now they've added a little bit of nowadays spice to it. If you're talking about a marketing playbook where you're trying to create interest, create demand, get people talking, use word of mouth to spread, get people talking about and get engagement with stuff, I think it's, from both of them, it's a good play. I mean, Palace if Palace aren't part of it, they're going to cop some benefit because people are just going to go out in support as well. So, yeah, you're right. It's a win-win. And I wouldn't be surprised if they...
Another angle is like, what would you think someone at Nike must be thinking? Because obviously nostalgia is based off their design, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. As a Nike guy, I'd be like, we want a piece of this. But at the same time, it's people like us probably understand that. Whereas a genuine like consumer who's not worked in that sort of environment doesn't know the whole branding aspect. Because if you look at the collars, like I saw the design, That's classic 2002 Brazil template. You know, even I can picture South Korea's jersey in
That
that
is
World Cup.
actually
The white and it's literally exact. So as a Nike person, what do you even say? Like, do you just say, yeah, cool, and move on, or?
But look what
Yeah,
Cortiez
then
did.
they have the collaboration, right? Yeah.
Yeah, then Nike should realize that this moment is an organic way for their brand to be reminded in people's heads for the right reasons. They're also getting kind of like a testing ground, a pilot test of if we were to relaunch 2002 World Cup kits as a line, as just a one-off drop. Let's say for the next World Cup, if we were designing kits and we want to create kits that get people buying, we're going to release, you know, yesteryear's World Cup kits. They've got a testing ground to see how popular they are with people. They could even say, okay, I mean, it's never been done before, but why hasn't there been a World Cup line done with a brand?
Yeah.
Why haven't, because
Cortez came close when you mentioned the Germany thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but again, they're flexible to do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But why hasn't it been done? Yeah. And if brands are looking, I mean, you've got so many football. We talked about the Drake Nocta Venexia stuff. There's classic football shirts who have loads of independent football shirt providers that get released. There's Cortiez doing this. It's kind of getting to that time that now when we get to the sport and we get to a World Cup, look at Adidas and Arsenal and Labrum now collaborating. And Adidas have collaborated with a lot of...
Aries as well, the recent one.
Exactly. Yeah. Why don't you take it on a world stage, the biggest tournament where people are buying kits? I think it's that time. And I think if Nike are looking at this, they should be like, okay, cool. It's probably time to start involving these brands in what we're doing to try and make sales.
If there is one point, it's the next World Cup, because that's going to be in America and that's US territory. So it was a US, Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah.
And I think Adidas have 2 of the 3 sponsors.
Okay.
So they sponsor Canada, I think.
Yeah.
And Mexico. I'm not sure about Canada. I could be wrong, and then US is obviously Nike.
That's a bit sad that Canada sponsored by Adidas, because you could have seen that Nocta Adidas Canadian
I
shirt.
wouldn't be surprised if something came. Yeah, something like that would be pretty sick. Like as you said, branding in the place you're hosting a World Cup in your country, bro. It's like
the most relevant artist in your country, the team that's all in, because all the team are in that age group as well that probably listen to that type of and know about this type of brands, are in that kind of space. So I think it'll be great.
Adidas hire Adi for
I'm just saying these ideas, you know what I mean?
Or Nike.
You know what I mean? It's not easy.
Cool. So we finished on Cortiez Palace.
Yes. Moving on, I think the main topic that we kind of had in mind to discuss, and all these things have kind of fallen into, is the whole notion of we're calling it rage baiting, that brands, that companies are using to try and push their products. And using marketing campaigns that basically bring out the ills in people or bring out negativity and use negativity and try and use that to kind of get as much brand exposure as possible. I don't know if rage baiting is the marketing dictionary or...
I picked that up from social media.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned it as, and a lot of people are, which is pretty cool, is the sense that a lot of people on social media are switched on to this.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit more awareness about what people are doing. But because it's so common now, I think people are like, well, I can pick this up pretty easily.
Yes.
So, and I guess it follows well in terms of, if you want to call it rage baiting, but the Palace Cortiez thing that we just mentioned around how, in a way, it's a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, I'm perceiving it as an angry reaction. Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
And then I guess it's a way of, I don't know, I find the caption or the thing that I came up with, or sentence, is like, have we gotten lazy with strategy? Have we exhausted everything in marketing now that we have to marketing is about emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have we just got to this point where the world, everyone knows there's so many issues and conflicts happening in the background, and you're constantly fed with this. So naturally, the easiest way to assimilate your brand or your exposure or your account or whatever you want to call it is by just adding to that fuel, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So the question, like that question was like, are we just getting to this point where we're just lazy in terms of strategy?
I mean, it's a tough question, but I think in terms of laziness, I don't necessarily think it's laziness. I think it's going back to what since the dawn of time has always seemed to garner work, has always seemed to work and has always seemed to garner responses from humans who I think the thing that's changed potentially is the fact that people are starting to cotton on to what is going on. I think this has been a tactic that people return to. You know, there's that saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah.
That comes from somewhere. Yeah. That comes from an understanding that people know that good publicity comes in as much as bad publicity. I'll tell you, like, within this story, I was watching this thing on Netflix. Have you watched this show called The Influencer?
No.
On Netflix?
No.
It's basically a show where people compete to be the best influencer.
That's mad.
Yeah. I think it's in South Korea that they shot it. Where, yeah, another game show like that. They make a good game show, man. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, so in that show, there was one of the challenges, the second challenge of the overall season, I think was they had to basically be in a room with all the other influencers that were there. And initially, they're ranked by how many followers they had on whatever platform. And then they basically had to do something either to get somebody to, I think it was reshare or like
from their audience.
Yeah. So from the audience in the room to either like give them a like and they could reciprocate and give that person a like or give that person a dislike.
Yeah.
And so all of them are going round and they didn't really tell them what the cause of the show was, and they were all going around trying to get likes initially and all trying to get likes. And then some people clocked halfway through and they were like, hold on. They said they're going to tot up who has the most influence at the end. So some guys are like, I wonder if you get more dislikes,
you're still influencing.
You're still influencing.
Yeah.
So they started doing stuff to actively get people to dislike them. Mm. Turns out in the end, it was that, and it was just about kind of influence across the board. And I know that's a segue, but it's kind of going back into the thought that negative comments, negative perception around what you're doing doesn't detract in some senses from getting exposure.
Yeah. As we just mentioned about Cortiez.
Exactly.
He's taken the triangle logo of Palace and just used that. In my brain, that's a no-go, right?
Exactly.
But but then it comes down to what the brand stands for.
Yeah.
And what you feel what boundaries you can push.
Exactly.
And I hate when people say disruption, but that's what it is, right?
It's straight up disruption. So I feel like it's not a lazy thing that people haven't gotten lazy. I think they just know it works. You know, even I wrote my master's dissertation, not to throw that out there, but on how negative marketing, you know, is effective and negative opinions and reviews and comments spread more than positive sometimes, because it's just a natural, I don't know what the innate human trait is to kind of spread negative news. It's a psychology.
Psychology is very easy to fall back on looking at the bad first.
Yeah.
And that's why with affirmations and like positive, it's an actual effort.
Actual effort to do it.
Yeah.
So where we're seeing, like, you know, all this stuff of rage baiting happening, I think people just understand that people are going to speak about stuff. People are going to spread stuff in a negative light. People are going to want to debate and trade negative opinions. And there is that, you know, and it's just capitalizing on it in this era. It looks different now because it's not on television anymore. It's not necessarily so much on print media anymore. It's now very much so on social media, where people have an active voice to contribute to the conversation and to be a part of the negativity and to engage.
So on that, then obviously the topic point or the last couple of weeks was the Heinz campaign. That, it was they had 2 actual campaigns that got pulled at the end of whatever people have been flagging up, which is fair enough. Like I literally have no, I don't feel sorry for Heinz at all.
Yeah.
I think it was just like ridiculous. But seeing, I want to find the person who flagged this up initially. I saw it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I will tag them. But they broke down why this was like a problematic advert with the historic context about, you know, slavery and all this kind of stuff that's come up. And, you know, it was really interesting, and it gave me a bit of a more of an idea as to why people would get angry, and that's great. That's what we need, right? But it falls back on that thing of why are these things getting passed on, as in like passed as in signed off?
Yeah.
And secondly, is it again like we've just mentioned about rage baiting? Could it be that they're just doing the same thing again to get exposure?
Well, interestingly, so in the world of AI, I didn't know this existed until I looked into this more. But one, there's an advertising agency who has basically like an AI bot.
Okay.
And basically, this AI bot, you feed it in a kind of creative and
a prompt,
of what you're looking to put out. And what it does is kind of obviously scours all of its resources to spit out what the potential reaction to the Heinz advert or to an advert that you're going to run would have been. I'm actually going to read out what the AI bot this agency used spat out, just to kind of let you know that exactly about what you said. Did they see this and just...
So in context, in plain English, in that sense, that's not of the mark. So basically, what happens, or what you're describing, is that when there's a creative imagery or video that's created by an agency who is normally appointed by a brand, they have a tool essentially that they use to get some feedback, which again I think is a benefit, because sometimes you just put a campaign out there without any context. So just for people that just to understand the relationship of what goes on behind the scenes.
And it's literally, it was Oliver Agency, and they've got an AI sandbox. And so they said, here are a few highlights from our Gen AI semiotition. Visual rhetoric. So actually, another thing, we should probably explain, this is to do with the Heinz campaign that got banned because they wanted to depict it kind of like with a scary theme. It was a Joker-based Halloween
and the
theme.
Halloween thing going on.
Yeah. Okay. So they were depicting people biting into a burger and kind of like a blood smear on the mouth or lipstick on the mouth. You know how Joker has his haphazard makeup. They wanted to depict the kind of a ring of tomato sauce. Now, everyone knows about Heinz tomato sauce. So, you know what I mean? They wanted to depict a ring of tomato sauce around people's mouths. Now, they did it. And on one of the instances, there was a black guy in a very dark background, very like kind of dark setting, which highlighted his skin color, and he had bright red Heinz tomato ketchup, which was definitely color graded to make the red more vivid. People were, you know, a little bit outraged because it came across like blackface. And it really touched, it looked very reminiscent of what that was. And I think that's why people thought it was a bit insensitive, because it's like, you know what this looks like. So that in mind, I'll read out the semiotician. Visual rhetoric. The image represents a stark contrast between the dark skin of the individual and the bright red ketchup on their lips, creating a visually striking but potentially problematic juxtaposition. Facial expression. The exaggerated wide-mouthed laugh with ketchup-stained lips bears resemblance to historical racist caricatures, particularly blackface imagery. This is a major concern. Cultural sensitivity. The overall composition risks reinforcing harmful stereotypes and could be perceived as exploitative or insensitive to racial issues. And finally, intertextually, the ad may unintentionally reference problematic historical representations of black individuals in advertising and media. From a brand management perspective, I would strongly advise reconsidering this advertisement. The potential for misinterpretation and offense is high, and it could lead to significant backlash and damage to the brand's reputation. The ad's attempt at humor and visual impact is overshadowed by its problematic connotations. A more inclusive and culturally sensitive approach that focuses on the product rather than potentially controversial imagery would be advisable. If an AI bot said that from the image,
that's crazy, man.
And no one in that office could say, hold on, guys, should we do this?
So this is why I think, well, there's a clear example of where AI benefits. That's a clear example.
100%, yeah.
And then the annoying thing I've seen is that even within context of that sort of, I guess, Central Europe, there's been historical recent moments of them being in black. I think it's the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. They had like a parade. So this is why when I saw that campaign, and I was like, maybe, I don't know, Heinz is German. I don't know where it's been. I don't know the dynamics of where it's been. But if you're running that in, different areas of Europe, you need to be culturally sensitive about where people are coming from.
Exactly.
So how that runs, I don't know. So that's just my opinion. That's why I think you have a clear pathway for people that come from different backgrounds to have these decisions or have a say in these decisions.
You should. That's what everybody who's discussed it has claimed for. It's like someone in the boardroom who gives that objective, that
it's a
subjective review from the perspective of somebody who might be offended. It's about not to bang on about increasing diversity quotas or just increasing the diversity of people who work on these things and who have say off and sign off. That's why different points of view, whether male, female, older, younger, so on and so forth, are critical, because then you get a rounded view of something. But that's, to your point before, why everything lines up to say that they avoided it and understood what it would do. Because at the very crux of everything with marketing, what do you want to do? You said this before.
And the thing that came across is, like, if you think about Heinz, right? They are such a staple in you. It's a constant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Throughout your life, it's just Heinz beans, tomato ketchup, mayonnaise. It's a constant, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do to get some sort of a peak or an interest, or like pay more attention to Heinz? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, they're already I get exactly what they just, if they want people talking about them already, something that kind of is their brand could easily become an afterthought, or as afterthought.
It's become part of your. It's like I'm trying to think of another brand that's like a staple that you just know the logo.
Yeah,
it's just It's been part of your life. I would even say Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
Coca-Cola's been there since I was 1 year old, right?
Exactly.
It's a staple. If you think about soft drink, Coke.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you get? The cool thing with Coke is they have different, like, don't get me wrong, they've had their own controversies in the past, but they do different collaborations. You'll see them in fashion.
Yeah.
You'll see them with like Coke shoes or Matchbox cars. That's what I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
There was collaborate, and they were doing that. They do that constantly.
Yeah.
Whereas with Heinz, I can't remember something impactful in my mind
that they've done outside. Yeah.
Maybe I'm missing something, but and then you look at what they've done now in rage baiting. It's making us talk about it. It's causing controversy. It's brought Heinz into the spotlight. Now they're under a microscope, behaviorally.
Yeah.
Which I don't think, like, they're too big to fail. Nobody's gonna stop buying Heinz. Let's be honest.
That's the thing. It's like a religious thing. Like, I've got friends who are like, I don't touch baked beans, or I don't touch ketchup unless it's Heinz. There's no point having other ketchup. So they've got that already. I get what you're saying. I think they're too big to fail, but I also believe that this alienates them from potential other brand partnerships that might be interesting. They really got to play it carefully. But again, they may know this. Yeah. Heinz is a product. It's condiments. It's very much, how do you zhuzh up condiments? And I've seen them try. I think they had a series on Channel 4 that they tried to do with some chefs. I don't know what the results of that were, but it didn't seem like, they do like many trees.
They did like sauce collaborations, like Heinz and this and Heinz. You know what I mean? Like, they started to mix it up a bit, which that's why when it comes to mine, I'm like, it's not. It's kind of weird that you start seeing ketchup and mayonnaise sauce by Heinz. Like, they've purposely done that, right? But people do that anyway because they like the mix.
Yeah.
But that's why they cause themselves a bit of controversy, and then at the same time they've basically put themselves out there. And don't get me wrong, I don't like what they've done at all, but then it's just us giving our opinion in terms of a marketing sense. Like, I'm sure there must have been one person that would have known what they was going to cause. Surely.
I mean, it's the fact of the matter is, with them as well, there must be someone who knew, because it's not one campaign.
Yes.
There were two campaigns in pretty quick succession. And
The second one had a different context to it, right?
Yeah. So that was
same. It still offended a lot of people from a Black or Caribbean background.
Yeah.
So,
and that I think that advert was they were trying to sell a new pasta sauce, and they were basically showing people eating the pasta sauce. I think the theme was to have 5 people in a shot.
Yeah.
It was kind of on underground stations as a large billboard to have people eating pasta in precarious situations or situations where it kind of showed how much, where they'd really be able to, how much they'd break the rules to eat this pasta sauce. So I think it had one with like a nonna and like 4 kids around her.
Yeah.
She's in the middle. She hasn't given them food, or they've got dry pasta and she's got all the tomato sauce on her pasta. Yeah. They had a whole bunch of like what would be quote unquote hippies, and one of them eating the pasta directly from the pot and the rest waiting with their plates. But they had the third one, which was this family at a wedding.
Yeah.
The bride, who was, of Caribbean
and she was in the dress as well,
Caribbean descent, and she was wearing the white wedding dress, and they had the groom next to her, and then they had 2 of the groom's family members, mother and father, or what you would perceive as the mother and father, and then the mother of the bride. Well, what you would believe is the mother of the bride, because she was of African Caribbean descent as well, on her left-hand side. And what the problem with this advert was that got so much, negative feedback is it was depicting an old stereotype, which has been kind of pushed again and again, that, Black people have fatherless homes and the mother is the only person represented. To which the agency that Hines worked with kind of reiterated the narrative of having 5 people in the shot, but people then questioned, why couldn't you have
the father
in there, or why couldn't it be
a kid,
all family members? Exactly.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it could be a kid of one of the person. It could be equal. They could have done more to make it representative of a positive stereotype and a positive affirmation of that community. So I think for them to go from that, which is the first, and see that, I guess that gives you a lens of how sensitive certain topics and certain optics are and the reaction they can garner. To go then with the Joker thing, it's negligence. And that's where I would agree with you. It's lazy, but it's lazy because they know they can get an impression. But it's because it's so hard for them as the leading brand to do something different. They've just leant back and said, all right, cool, let's cause a bit of trouble. That's why I think that's lazy. That's lazy when it's at that level.
It's especially with the budgets at play. That's what I just don't understand. Like you have multiple avenues to bring in specialists to come in and say, cool, we've done this campaign, we're ready. What do you think about it? And run it with some other people or different consultancies like ourselves who could give that opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is at that point. And I do want to see what actually unfolds from now. And I don't know, maybe you'll start to see people changing positions. I'll definitely be checking them under a microscope now.
Might have to boycott beans, basically. Start eating other brands, or just start making your own tomato sauce. Yeah,
Tesco's finest.
No, not Tesco's finest. Got me through some dark nights at uni, man.
I'm not gonna hate on that.
Yeah,
Tesco noodles as well,
bro.
9p or 10p.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? You couldn't go wrong, and then you just jazz it up with other ingredients. You couldn't go wrong.
And then with that similar thing around rage baiting, I think there was it's within my algorithm, as I mentioned before, what I got served. So there's a notorious Twitter, I guess, profile called CFC Mod. He's a Chelsea fan. I'm not sure, but he could be based out of Nigeria.
Okay.
And he's got like he had a massive following, and essentially he sold his account. So for those people that don't understand, when you amass a lot of followers on, like, I guess you're on Twitter and you kind of like got a lot of engagement and a lot of people complaining. I wouldn't say complaining, but football is so tribalistic that you have an opinion all the time, and you put something out there, gets a reaction, and they love that because they get the engagement, right? Yeah. But he essentially sold his handle because he had about, I would assume, 222,000, something like that, followers.
On Twitter, that's no mean feat. Yeah, that's
as just one person doing that, which is great. And then he sold it, and a company bought it, and they got banned. because I guess it must have flagged up on like the guidelines, and Twitter are not like a silly, or X, whatever you call it. They're not a silly platform, regardless if they've had staff cuts and stuff. Their algorithms will pick up something.
Yeah.
And even with their premium payment model where you get the blue tick and stuff, there's a lot of processes that you need to go through to change your name, to change your profile. It takes like 48 to 72 hours to get something approved. So yeah, that company took over and he was banned within 24 hours.
Okay.
And what I saw online was like, I think he got about $70,000 or something like that. Something like that. I'm not sure exact figure.
Oof.
But he had created a account based off rage baiting. And essentially off the back of that, someone else has decided, because he's got an audience, let me put some money on it and shortcut my way to getting that audience, which is fine. From my perspective, his side, he's made his money, like, cool. But at the same time, it's like, it comes down to the question of, why is there no other way to engage people? Like, especially now, recently on X, it's like, you know, it's become the free speech place and all this kind of stuff, which I'm not against. But some of the stuff I read there is like, I've completely tuned. And I used to love that platform.
Yeah.
So he's made his money. He's moved off. As a brand now, you're looking at how you use that medium as advertising, and you've just seen how you can make money is just by rage bait. So why, again, it goes back to the question of why do we need to do this?
I mean, that is not a good endorsement of X's advertising, and I can understand why they've shut the account down when it's been bought, because if they don't shut the account down, what it says to brands, I feel they're really trying their hardest to create the kind of experience with ads that you have on like a YouTube, or you have on other social media like Instagram and stuff, where it's kind of really been lucrative for Meta and stuff. And I don't think they're having the same time of it. And I feel that if they allow that to be common practice, where you can build an audience, everyone's going to do it. So many brands are going to buy into it. And the thing is, when you are buying engagement of an audience that is captured because they like to engage in those sorts of topics, you're likely not to be a brand where then other brands, or a platform where other brands which don't want to play in that arena and who don't have those kind of sensitive topics that they want to, you know, dive headfirst into and compete for ad space in those, amongst those chats, they're not going to really come into that platform. So I think from that perspective, X had to really make
because
stand with it.
The amount of other accounts that probably do the same thing. It's like they'll easily see that as like, oh, okay, cool. Which I'm not against, because you're making money and you're just a single person. If a brand is coming to you and saying, I'll give you $30,000 for your account, you're not going to say no. The CFC mod guy basically went and created his own second handle, CFC mod V2, and said, hey guys, I'm over here now.
Well, then that's an oversight, and we discussed this, but that's an oversight on the company's part. I mean, yes, you've got data, and this is one of the ills of data, because you've got a campaign, it's getting you engaged, or somebody's got engagement and they're doing something, but then this isn't a date, this is common sense.
Yeah.
To understand that you go and purchase something, you lose the person. The Twitter handle is made by him. Yeah, you lose that person,
and they rebranded it and everything.
So how I would have been so interested to see how they were going to start and continue that conversation, or whether they were, or was it
what the plan was basically. Yeah.
And so did they then have a narrative and a strategic plan of continual rage baiting and introducing new characters on this? Like,
you don't know, and unfortunately, again, that's dictated by the industry, where within football, unfortunately, I think it's very betting focused, and it's very, like I said, tribalistic. It's very easy to cause division, because you just put out an opinion, someone will bite, and then you can, I mean, I've done that on my side.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that sometimes, because I just like annoying people when you're in that mood. And then similarly, off the back of that as well, what I saw it's still going on now. Similarly, all these accounts that are, I guess, they represent a club, or they use an icon of like a player, a famous football player within the Premier League. They garner a lot of interest because they're, I guess, taking their own opinions. Nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that mystery
Yeah.
sort of thing. And Stake, back on the gambling thing, US company, if I'm not mistaken, they started to sponsor. I thought it was quite smart, but they put a lot of watermarks on these rage bait posts. So what these users were doing were like doing player comparisons. For example, like Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka, who's better because da da da. And they would have the watermark of Stake there. And a lot of people would be engaging in that. And that would be retweeted. That would be shared on WhatsApp groups. Everywhere you saw,
Yeah.
I think it's still there now, but to a low level. And they're under investigation for some stuff. But personally, I think that's a very smart thing because it's outside the box.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the actual fundamentals of it, like you can look at it and kind of be like, it's kind of a shitty way of doing stuff.
Yeah.
And why do you want to associate your brand to, I guess, just for engagement metrics?
But the thing is, it's I get, as you say, I respect the intention with the campaign. It's guerrilla marketing. Look, there's loads of brands that do different activations. There's people who go outside, people's events and do stuff when they know their competitors having an event. There's people who do different stuff, and marketers always needing to think of creative ways. I think
Paddy Power. Paddy Power do that stuff. Exactly. But that's their Ryanair. Similarly, that's their brand, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe Stake are giving themselves a stake in the race. Yeah. But I think they're trying to get their brand out there. I think the thing that about sports is that the thing, as you said, is aligned with it. Is betting comes with sports. So does debate.
Yeah.
So does, if there is ever a ground for exchange of negative opinion at a rate of knots, it is within the sports world, because it's so subjective, because everybody argues their opinion like it's fact and doesn't want to listen to other people's opinion, but they're ready to go toe to toe. I've had many arguments.
So this is a question to you, I guess, and just what your thoughts are, not like this is an interview or anything, but when you have a brand associated like Stake, for example, or a betting, whatever you want to call gambling, and you have these accounts that are sharing this information and you're associated with that, it becomes this thing, again, smart way of getting your brand out there. But do you think as a consumer, do consumers within betting not, like I do accumulators on the weekend, I don't think personally I would look at a brand that's been engaged with that. I don't associate, do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't associate those people with that brand, and it doesn't take away from the fact I'll still use them. Do you know what I mean?
So you're saying the people who actually put the watermarks
so
on
if you've seen this rage baiting going on, would it affect your view of Stake?
No, because I don't think it would affect my view of Stake, because they could be on loads of subjects. They could be on a subject I agree with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they said Bukayo Saka's better than XXX player, I would be like, yeah, of course he is. You know what I mean? So they could be on a topic that I agree with. I think it just helps them because it's a vehicle, a very economical vehicle for exposure. Because if you think about, if their main thing is exposure, they're not caring about kind of actually, okay, at some point they want people to come and bet with their service, but they just need to get their name out there. Stake is one of the most recent, it's more recent betting company. It's not been around forever. So, they've even got endorsed, they've got a,
Drake,
this guy
well.
again, they've got an endorsement with Drake where I've never seen that before, like a musician gambling, and he's, always talking about
openly,
Stake,
openly on his social
gambling,
channels,
showing his bets.
Yeah.
So they're really going heavy at trying to get people aware of who they are. Now, if you're talking about what gets the most shares and reshares, I think getting your name out there, getting your logo out there, letting people know that you are related to sports.
Yeah.
You might not, because it doesn't, even though it says Stake, it doesn't say it endorses the opinion. Some people might see it that way, but it's just a watermark on these people's posts. I think it's a good way, it's a good vehicle for a company like that who might not necessarily care too much about the ethics, because, within the world that they work in, to try and get their name spread as quickly as possible by users. You have people who are going to be debating, you have a Twitter thread on it, you got comments on it, loads of people see it, they share it, they speak about it, they may share their own, takes on stuff. It's on WhatsApp, it transcends different channels, it goes to different, platforms.
And it's just there in the corner.
Yeah.
It's literally just there in the corner.
Exactly.
That's it. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't say, "Oh, we endorse this message." Or,
Exactly.
But then the problem comes in where one of those accounts do something stupid, or you see what I mean? But then, like I said before, it doesn't affect. To me, it wouldn't affect the way I view it because I know it's coming from XYZ account.
But the thing about, and this is the thing about certain brands where they benefit from the market they work in, is that the people that they're aligned to, the sports people, and then even the people with these rage baiting posts, they can play both sides. Because if one of these people with rage baiting posts goes and does something crazy, they're already in a space where it's a little bit of a gray area for some people. There's some people who don't agree with betting. There's some people who don't agree with, you know, the whole worlds of stakes and paddy powers and stuff like that. So it's not going to have such a damaging effect because they've never really put their brand out by virtue of what they actually provide to be this.
And in terms of effectiveness, it's like it's really cool in the sense that they're just partnered with like these massive accounts. But again, it goes back to what I would love to see is that how they report on that. I mean, it's just visual.
Yeah.
But data wise, you'd be like, oh, like I got, I don't know, 300,000 impressions this month with these three like that sort of stuff. I would love to understand or be behind the scenes of what those conversations happen.
Yeah.
How that's understood as a positive influence on the brand.
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting way of just seeing what will unfold from that, basically.
Well, I mean, automatically, you can kind of, they will know the people who they've gotten to get posts out. And like with any kind of marketing science, it's about the goals that you set at the beginning of your campaign or whatever you're going to do. Different to what they do with Drake, they might say, okay, this is potentially, and this is me paraphrasing, if I was at stake, what... if I was at stake... if I was working behind the scenes at stake, what would I say? I would say, right, this is purely for exposure. This is just to get our brand out there as far as possible. And what we're going to measure is the reach. So we've got these people doing these posts. The thing about doing it on these platforms is that you might not be able to quantify what's happening when it's taken off and goes into a WhatsApp, but you can directly see in Twitter feeds, the amount of comments, the amount of shares, the amount of stuff that is going on. You can see on an Instagram, you can see on a Facebook, you can see on all these platforms how far. It may not mean that somebody's going to go to your state website, but how far people are going. Now, I don't know if they've got links with these guys, but it doesn't seem like they're putting out bespoke track links or anything on these posts. It's literally just, it's like, here's our logo, here you are.
I'll pay you X amount, just put it on the next 10
posts. Put our
posts
name there.
That's it.
So then they're just going to use that to understand the reach that they're getting from the posts on these guys. And then the rage bait posts as well will transcend those guys' reach because they may have certain followers, but other people who probably don't follow them will get brought into the conversation as well. So I think if it's purely from an awareness point of view, they're going to use those sorts of metrics about, engagement metrics that you have on social. And they can look at that as like an accurate representation against the goals that they would have had, which is just to boost, which is just to get people to be aware of what stake is. Then they can, look at all the other metrics that go at the same time. How many people are visiting their sites? If they have the schedule, how many people visit their platforms? If the number of bets go up and gamblers go up at the same time, to see if they're kind of secondary benefits to this,
which you won't realize immediately when the campaign goes live, but as it starts to bake itself,
you'll
start to see, like you said, the metrics around website visits, or maybe as a revenue increase of, in the next 2 months or whatever.
Exactly.
That means you can sort of correlate your awareness campaign. And it's kind of worked because we've got X, Y, and Z amount of running.
Exactly. You can see searches. You can see how many people have come from those sites directly to stake referrals, site referrals. You can see there's a lot of stuff that they would look into. The reason why I don't mention that as first is because there's going to be a lot of this happened, so it must have led to this. If they're not kind of specifically tracking stuff like we know some betting companies do, where the links that you go to are all tracked and stuff. So it would be a secondary benefit. So if I was sitting in the office, that would be the first thing, but now I'll communicate that this is the potential added benefit that we're going to get. We're definitely going to see this. Yeah. We might not be able to say exactly it came from that, but at least it's a first part of the funnel basically that they're getting. And then the next stage, they can mobilize those people.
So what I'll do is, even off the back of this, I'll go on Google, search the index and just see what has happened over the last 3 weeks in terms of stakes brand.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I'll probably share that on our channels and whatever. I'm not sure it's going to get much, but it's interesting to me. But yeah, I think that just concludes our rage baiting topic as it stands from this episode, specifically focusing on, I guess, behavior and interaction and how brands can basically, are they getting lazy? Are they not? Is it a controversial move that they're actually planning? We don't know that.
Yep.
But it's going to be cool to see how these campaigns evolve over the next few weeks.
But remember, there was an opposite version before we hop off the subject of rage baiting, where it's not necessarily rage baiting, but it's inviting rage.
Okay.
To promote the KSI single.
Yes. So yeah, the KSI angle was that he recorded a song with Trippie Redd, who's another rapper.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is that KSI, for me, he's done really well for himself.
Okay.
He's a genius in that sense.
I think I'm not gonna lie, man. Yeah, he's done well for himself. That's he's a smart guy.
I think he knows the game in terms of marketing. He gets it.
He does.
He gets it.
He doesn't necessarily know music. I'm just not a fan of his musical works. I'll be honest.
That's fine. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
And then we just over the last week or so, he got 2, 3, 4, 5 biggest streamers in the world to comment on his stuff, to do live videos with him and like live reactions, which is not new thing, but it's the thing, live react to music and see what people's reactions are. I think he's done it on purpose. I think the song I don't like, obviously, but very generic, catchy tune. Only a couple of weeks ago, he had like 3 massive screen trucks when I was in Oxford Circus with my mate.
Oh wow!
Driving around playing that song, and I just got angry because it just kept coming around, and I'm just like, guys, like you don't like. I get it. Again, thinking outside the box. He's marketing well.
Yeah.
Not many artists do that. Maybe I've not seen that well, but he gets it.
So what was that?
It's just 3 trucks with massive screens of the video playing, and that song was just playing. His song was just on repeat, and they were driving up and down Oxford Circus.
Okay.
I guess just exposure.
Wow.
And he got the streamers like Speed and Kai Cenat and I don't know, so many others, to his brother as well.
Yeah.
To react to his song. Everyone was taking the piss of him. Conor McGregor was commenting it. He said it was crap. And then it got 89 out of the 89th position on the top 100 Billboard chart. It charted at number 1 in the UK. And he was like, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, I personally think it was calculated to have a song and then just get a few streamers to kind of just laugh at you. And then as the number 1 rule of comedy is, how do you make people laugh, is take the piss of yourself. And that's what he's done. And it's got him a charted song.
I mean, so do you think he's leaning into the fact that people don't rate him musically?
I think he put out the song and then he saw what the reaction was, like on comments on social media, and then he's like, because he's, I would say, smart, he'd be like, okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to text, because he knows these people, the 3, 4, 5 streamers, let's do a stream watch along of my video, like in the next couple of hours, and take the piss of me. So he's reacted to the market, if you want to call it that. His audience have already told him it's crap.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get the biggest people and most eyes possible, take the piss of me anytime. And he's done this before as well, in the sense of the Prime sponsorship of WWE, where he dressed up as the Prime bottle at like one of these pay-per-views at WWE. Randy Orton, superstar, put him in the ring, gave him an RKO, and he just like rolled over out of his shitty like Prime suit, and everyone's taking the piss of him. Massive beams. Again, exposure, comedy, got people laughing at him, but his brand is there. Same thing happened with his song.
You see, I guess on the song example, the brand exposure example with Prime, it will get him exposure to that audience in a sporting arena and stuff like that. Whether it's going to come back to something which is like sales of bottles of Prime,
we don't know.
I don't know. But the thing with the song is that it's very smart. Like
speculation.
Rappers, exactly. Because we could just be giving him credit and this brother didn't even know that he was doing that. But on so many levels, it's good because 1, he's playing the song, he's getting it stuck in people's heads. Two, he's gone to the biggest streamers, so he's got a certain type of audience to listen to his song, watch along with him, and then laugh. He's got, there's a massive reaction community on all these platforms. Every time one of them reacts, because they're going to want to react to him, because all the best streamers are reacting to his stuff. They're going to want to react. That's another set of plays for his song. You've got then the people who are watching all these reactors going to go and take the piss, or going to go and probably listen to the song themselves.
The other one that I forgot to say was like Mr. Beast as well. He hired a cinema, and he got people in there for free to watch and take the piss of the guy's song. I completely forgot, and I just remembered it. So Mr. Beast essentially is the biggest YouTuber in the world, and he got KSI's song, and people laughed at him in a cinema. But that's what I'm saying. But they're in business together anyway, so it's quite. I don't want to say it's easy because they've worked to get there, but that affiliation to get some of the biggest streamers in the world to just take the piss of you, everyone's going to engage in that.
And it's knowing their audience. I think one of the fundamental things about marketing is to kind of, before you go out with any campaign, know your audience and know where they reside. This is part of the planning, your ideal customer profile, basically, and knowing where your audience reside, knowing who and what their interests are and what they buy into, and knowing what emotive notes get to them. Going back to the rage baiting thing, or the laughing thing, or the wanting to take the piss out of people, or reacting to stuff.
That's that teenage audience. Like, we used to do that as kids. Like, you take the piss of people just because, and it's fun. You know what I mean? And you go and talk, and you be playing it at school and dancing and taking the piss, and it's like, you don't really realize. I mean, it's not necessary. And the thing is, because sales of songs have now, we are measured on sales still, but streams is directly tracked. Like, the moment I click on the song, it's tracked. So you can directly see what the impact is of every action.
Every laughing
and time.
Action. Exactly. Yeah. So you can correlate it to these big posts. You can also see what's going on, like, in terms of in real time. But then you're actually, the metric that you're trying to achieve, you're actually achieving it by encouraging people even to take the piss out of you. Yeah. So you said a quote about comedy that I thought was amazing earlier.
Take the piss of yourself first, right?
Exactly.
And it worked.
It does.
He got his #1 song on the charts or something, but
I still think his pants. I'm not gonna lie, musically,
I'm not judging.
Let him come for me. This is just my musical sense, but that is like, from a marketing perspective.
And he got a trending song,
number one song, and number ones are judged by streams.
And we're talking about it,
and you know what I mean? Studio, where he doesn't even know what this is. So, major props, man. I think, in everyday life, you see some marketing coming out in different ways. This is the reason. I mean, going back to why we do this podcast, is just, these are the type of things that they're examples of marketing that nobody is really dissecting. Yeah. And no one's looking at it from a lens of a marketer to see, like, what these people are doing. Everybody's just consuming the content or doing stuff, but not really necessarily asking themselves, why is this, or is this purposeful, or is this person thought out? Is this part of a wider activation or a campaign?
It's like checking the curtain, seeing what's going on.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that it's actually interesting when you see, because what it does show, which again aligns with one of the things that I know we both believe in, is that people from all different backgrounds, some people are ridiculously good marketers, and they don't even classify themselves as marketers. They're ridiculously good, and they don't look like the people who evangelize marketing and talk about stuff. They got it. We talked about KSI, we talked about Clint from Cortiez. They are like literally legendary for their markets and who they're trying to target. They're legendary marketers. They know what moves the needle for them.
The key thing about that is audience. They know how to work their audience. They know what works with them. They know how to engage them. They get the results. Yeah. So to just even know who your audience is and how to engage with them, I think that's 90% of what you need to do. Yeah. And then the next 10% is like, assets, and how do you expose yourself to this, and that? What do you actually go out to market with? Yeah. But if you can get your audience to a certain place, certain time, job done, basically.
Exactly. And you think about the budgets that when they first start out with, these people have. They don't have the budgets that some people have. And to your point, a lot of people with big budgets overact, in the sense of they produce headlessly without really trying to get under the skin and to understand, knowing your audience, but understanding what makes your audience tick and being there with them. That is what these people really, really embody. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily come from, it just comes from actually saying, okay, I am a person, I'm a human outside. It's like sometimes when people go into a business sense, they lose all notion of what it's like to actually be a human outside. And they don't apply stuff, especially if they fall into the audience category of people that they're trying to target. They don't apply what they would do to themselves naturally to what they create or the campaigns they run. And I think that's what we can learn from all of these people, is that be human, man. But like, understand that you're a human first, and think, what would I do? Or what would a human do? Or what would somebody, if you're in that category, what would I like?
What is your actual natural reaction, rather than losing yourself to the bigger purpose?
Format. Yeah. Okay. So marketing acronym of the week is ROAS, and that's return on ad spend. So this is one of these acronyms that I probably have heard about before, but I never really saw it live because I'd never worked in the paid media side of marketing yet. It's something I'm kind of learning about. It's really interesting, but it's like a different world to kind of marketing operations and automation with your CRM systems and stuff. And what this is the return on the spend that you commission on creatives that are within like a group of what is called an ad campaign. So, you know, when you go online and you see little boxes at the end of your Sky Sports News article that has, you know, click here, or it might be an article. There's native ads where it makes it look like it's within the page. And there's other types of ads that are like banners that pop up that you can click. So every one of those ads has an amount of value that is commissioned to be spent overall on that campaign. You have the cost for each click, but then you have the cost for the whole campaign. And the return on ad spend is how much is gained by the business in comparison to the spend of ad. So it's kind of like a return on investment, but it's specifically for ad spend.
And we said this before, that normally it's presented as a ratio.
Yeah.
Why is that presented ratio? If you want to distill it down, you need to prove, or as marketers know, in terms of budgets, you always go to someone to get the money, right? Because you can't do X, Y, and Z without the money.
Exactly.
So in essence, you still have to present that information as your history, or like proof of concept, if you want to call it that, as to why you need to present it in financial literacy terms as a ratio. Why is that?
Because as you need a marker to understand, for every X amount of investment that you put into something, you're getting X back. So it's got to be it's a return ratio. And ideally, every marketer's dream would be to have a ratio that is a lower level of ad spend with a higher level of return from it. Just like in any other financial ratio, similar to return on investment. It's like a £1 investment gets you £20 return. That's a win. That's a winning situation.
In true marketers forms, you have to adapt to your audience, which are the finance department.
Yeah.
And create some language or campaign that appeals to them, and tell them the story about what happened and how you go about it.
Because you got to make money at the end of the day. That's unfortunately, that's what a lot of marketing is geared towards doing.
And then we wanted to also, I mean, if we are happy to segue onto career development in terms of, I guess, specific around advice on progressing in marketing and knowing when to kind of pivot, essentially. What, like, from your own experience in terms of how you've developed, what was that? What do you give in terms of a one piece of advice?
I feel regularly we should do this as well. We should kind of give this as part of every episode. I think for today, one thing that kind of lines up with everything that we discussed is staying true to your personal brand. I think in marketing...
What do you mean by personal brand, though?
Okay, so in marketing, as all the years I've worked through, how I dress, maybe how I talk, because I'm from inner city London. At times, there've been parts of me that might want to change that because it doesn't line up when I walk into a room and nobody is the same. But it's so your personal brand is how you represent yourself and what the notion that people have of you, like a brand.
Yeah.
When they look at you in your work scenario, what things come to mind. And I think staying true to what you believe is yourself, is in your personal brand, bringing yourself as your personal brand and being confident that you are competent is not going to be a marker of the hair you have or the outfits you wear or the way you speak. Your competence is going to be, your competence should be the foundation of your personal brand, and then the other things augment it. But then also, if you're in marketing, difference is good. Diversity is good. We've spoken about this. Being different to the people that are around you gives you already an advantage, and it is beneficial to any company that you work in that you have different brands of people working underneath you.
It's a good way to visualize it, in the sense of you're hiring skills, but you're also hiring brands, because you need, as the marketing team evolves and how marketing interrelates with some of the work they need to do and constantly evolve, I wouldn't see what other department can be able to do that, if that makes sense, in terms of flexibility and appeal to getting that. It's just it's a drum that even I've been banging on for since my start of my career, and I was a really big advocate about diversity inclusion. I still am, but less so than I used to be. And unfortunately, you could probably say that I've watered down my personality in order to fit into a certain way. Also, unfortunately, you take priority on like just getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And marketing is a job, as you mentioned, right? It's not like the be all of end all, but I think something like this sort of conversation helps showcase, hopefully gives one person that sort of idea around how else do I tweak the way not tweak, but like how do I behave more like what it's true to me.
Exactly.
And bring that into a room confidently.
Yeah.
And be happy to share those ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, even this being quite transparent as we are, we were dicing about how we present this in terms of online and like to our audience. We were very, cagey. Just do it.
You have to be yourself. Your opinion and your perspective is unique to you. How you are is unique to you, and nobody else can say that's bad or, take that away from you. And I think the more that we have people encouraged to be themselves in every scenario, whether you're working in B2B companies, B2C companies, in marketing, I think it's only going to be a positive
everywhere.
Your company is the one that's going to probably even benefit from having more difference and diversity. And
sweet.
Pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Hopefully enjoy it. Hopefully you take some notes, and please hopefully reach out to us to be a guest at one point.
Remember, marketers are all humans.